12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos by Jordan B. Peterson. We've all been there. A good friend or family member is having a difficult time. You're there for them, giving support and advice. But when you're the one having problems, it's much more difficult to give yourself good advice, and even more difficult to actually take it. What's with that? Most parents try to limit the amount of junk food they let their kids eat, the amount of time they spend watching TV and online. But as soon as the kids are in bed, they're on the sofa, in front of the TV, phone in one hand, snacks in the other. A classic case of do as I say, not as I do. Why can't we look after ourselves the way we look after the ones we love? And how would your life change if you did? Jordan Peterson explains in Rule 2, treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. In the last 500 years, science has totally revolutionized the way we live, with innovations such as electricity, aeroplanes, and computers. The scientific viewpoint sees the world as being full of inanimate objects, such as planets, mountains, molecules, and atoms. Humans, of course, have been around for way longer than 500 years, and before science came along, our environment was dominated not by objects, but by our relationships and emotions. Science is quick to dismiss these experiences as merely subjective, but in fact they're very real to the humans who feel them. They're an inescapable part of the environment in which we evolved. We're social animals. Getting along with each other and understanding each other has always been vital to our survival. Researchers have discovered that we actually perceive personalities even before we perceive the objects themselves. Psychologists call this the hyperactive agency detector, and it explains why many people give their first car a name and treat it like something with a personality. Anyway, the point is that our brains have evolved not just in the material environment, but also in the environment of emotions and personalities. That's why, until the scientific revolution, people explain the world using stories, not scientific papers. Jordan Peterson has found that many ancient stories, handed down through the millennia, typically divide human experience into three parts: chaos, order, and consciousness. Chaos is the stuff we don't understand. It lurks under everything we experience. It's unexplored territory, a foreign language or culture. It's the despair you feel when you've been badly betrayed. It's 9/11. It's Darth Vader and the dark side of the Force. Order, on the other hand, is the stuff that we do understand. It's when your expectations match what actually happens. It's being in a loving, reciprocal relationship. It's a loyal friend. Lunch in a quiet country pub. It's tradition and the floor under your feet. It's the Shire in Lord of the Rings. Consciousness is how we mediate between order and chaos. Every situation is made up of both. There are always things that we can predict and those we cannot. For example, if you're a doctor, then order is your medical knowledge. It's the hospital, equipment, and medicine which helps you cure the sick. But chaos is not having an exact diagnosis. It's the emergence of new diseases. It's the funding restrictions on the National Health Service. If you're plunged into too much chaos, it can be overwhelming, and you could drown. If you always stay within the limits of what you can do and understand, then life gets boring. You stop growing. The trick is to be on the edge, with one foot in order and one in chaos. You know when you're there. It's gripping. Time passes without you noticing. You're in the zone. Okay, back to ancient stories passed down to us from our ancestors who were trying to make sense of the world. The story of Adam and Eve is about the first humans. They lived in a walled garden called Eden. Everything was in order. There was no chaos. Somehow, chaos got into the garden in the form of a snake. It persuaded Eve to bite the apple from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. She became self-conscious. She gave the apple to Adam, who too became conscious. The message of this story is that humans are the only animals who are conscious. Only we know the difference between good and evil. We can recognize both within ourselves. No one knows more about your faults than you. No one's got more reason to dislike yourself than you. We have the capacity to think and do terrible things. We know that we can make things worse on purpose if we want to. We compare ourselves to ideals like the beauty of Monica Bellucci or the intellect of Professor Brian Cox, and inevitably we come up short. We feel unworthy and ashamed, so we don't love and respect ourselves, and so we don't look after ourselves properly. Before Adam and Eve bit the apple, they were not conscious. They didn't know the difference between good and bad. Like other animals, they were in a sense perfect and in harmony with nature, but it was unconscious, instinctive, with no conscious choice involved. Where's the virtue in that? Surely goodness which is chosen is better, and we have the choice. Despite the burden of suffering, ugliness, inadequacy, and their mortal vulnerability, most people, overwhelmingly so, choose the good. It's amazing to think of what most normal people do each day. Most of us have got enough food, water and clothes. There's electricity, technology, all of which depends on the careful attention of normal people to keep it all going. Every day, ordinary people are walking the line between order and chaos, bringing forth the good stuff. Peterson says we should celebrate this fact, rather than being swamped in dislike for ourselves. So, just because we're flawed doesn't mean we shouldn't look after ourselves. You deserve self-respect. You should take care of yourself like you would someone you loved. Think about what would be good for you. What career? What are you going to do in your free time? How do you want to expand your knowledge? What are your limitations? How can you address these? Start with yourself. Choose what's going to be good for you now and your future self. Define who you are. Refine your personality and choose your destination. Replace your shame and shyness with pride and confidence. How's that for a project? You can walk with God in the garden. Treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping.